G'day, I'm Steve Hay. Welcome to my workshop. This is Woodworking Masterclass and it's part 4 of a 6-part series in making a 4x3 bookcase. Now we've got to fit the back. Just have a look down the ends here. If there's a couple that haven't gone all the way home like that one hasn't, look, don't lose any sweat about it. Okay, here I've got poking up about 1/16 of an inch. And all I do is grab a block plane or any sort of plane, and I'm just going to take that down to the edge. Not the whole shelf, just that bit that's poking up, and you'll see why shortly. Okay, that's nice and smooth. It's okay, that's okay. Yeah. A couple of hits. That's okay. That's alright, that's alright, that's alright, that's alright, that's alright. So now, to put the back on, these lining boards, I bought when I bought the rest of the timber. I'm just going to join them along the back. And in this case, I've got 2 profiles. I've got a Regency profile, and I've got a, what they call a 302 profile. So it's up to me really which way I want to have facing people. I don't know. I think I prefer this one. It doesn't have a groove down the middle. It's just got a little shiplap happening here with the bead. So that's what we'll do. So you work out how many you need. Remember which way it's going to go down. So this part with the V is going to be facing upwards. All right, now for the back, when they're all pushed together, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 pieces, but I've got an 8th piece. Now the reason for that is I don't want to have any of this profile showing on the back corner of the bookcase. So I'm going to go over to the table saw and I'm going to rip that off. So then I've got a nice straight edge that hasn't got a tongue in it and it hasn't got a groove in it. Then we'll put these boards on, and then the last one I'll slot in, mark it, score a pencil line, and then go back to the table saw and rip down that line. That way we've got nice square pieces of timber on both faces of the edges. So first off, I'll go over the table saw and I'll rip, now which way am I going? I'll rip a tongue off, one of these, and we'll be back. We can come over the saw if you like. And that's going to be our leading edge along there. So I'll just pack these ones up. All right, now these I've just noticed are slightly different in length. So we're going to have to cut them all to the same length. But what you're looking for is you want the top part to actually line up with the top of the top shelf. And where it comes underneath the bottom shelf, just make sure that it's no longer than this foot here. All right, now they're ready to go. Get that short one. It's the first one we put on. Up here so when I hammer it in I've got a bit of purchase. A little bit of glue along the the shelf. Make sure you've got the back of the cabinet, which I have because I've marked the front. This is the back. And a little bead down there. Now when I put this on, I'm not going to have it up flush against the side of the cabinet. I'm going to have it in about a mil and a half, or 3/32 of an inch. And I'm using brad nails again. These are 30 mil by 1.6. Now the reason for that obviously is this is 12 mil or ½ inch, not 3/4 inch or 19 mil like the shells were, so we don't need to have it as long. I'll just open these up. And again, it's not a bad idea to just pre-drill a couple of them to get it in place. Have it square to the top, squarish to the top. That'll do. Now when you're drilling these and nailing them, make sure you don't nail where the groove is, or else the tongue won't be able to go in. We'll finish those off with a nail punch in a bit. This board's a bit twisted, but it really doesn't matter. Because by the time it gets nailed in and all pulled down, it's going to flatten itself out quite nicely. If you're nailing into pine and you come to a knot, I've got a big knot here, avoid the knot because it'll split. Okay, so that's down, all nice and square. Grab the next board and remember which profile you want. And then you just slide it up. No, I'm not going to put glue on the rest of them. The reason being, if I put glue on there and then I go like that, I've actually got glue all on the inside of my job. So I won't do that on the rest. I'll just slot them in. And knock them home, and then again. So it's nice and level with the top. Bring the nails there, or else I'll end up losing them all. Now, that's the back screwed on, and really I could have given a little bit more thought to the width and taken a little bit more off this first board I put on. That way the whole back would have moved over, because I've only got a very skinny little piece here, which you could leave, but I will do a fill-in on there. But that's something when you're building your bookcase to maybe think of, instead of rushing in like I did, just maybe measure and take a little bit more or a little bit less off of your first board. So you've got, I would like about, I don't know, 50 mil, 2 inches of hangover here that I can put this last piece on. But what we do is put that last board in. Nice and firm, and with a pencil draw a line along there. So now what we have to do is cut on the table saw just on that line. Actually, I'm going to cut just a little bit on the inside of the line, and that'll give me that little bit of a quirk on the back of the cabinet that I've got on the other side. So let's go over the table saw. We'll rip this up, fit it on, the back's finished. And there we have it. Last little bit. And there we have the back on the cabinet. Just make sure that all these are level or just below the top. There's a couple there I'm just going to have to clean up with a block plane. But all in all, if I can pick her up, it's starting to come together like a really nice bookcase. And I really like this profile at the back rather than the normal VJ one. What we've got to do now is where we've got these dados, I'm going to cover those up. We'll put cover strips over that. Make sure there's nothing on your bench when you lay your job back down because it'll mark it. All right, some 2B1s. Oh, before I forget, if you don't have a router or you don't feel as if you can make the dados to put the shelves in the way that I put these shelves in, I'll show you another way you can do it, which is even easier and requires less tools. Well, welcome to another way of fitting the shelves to a bookcase. If you don't want to do it the way we've already discussed, here's a much simpler way. Still need a bit of 2B1, and I'm using a bit of MDF instead of timber because this is scrap and the timber's already in the job. But what you do, we'll pretend this is the side, get your 2B1 and measure the width of your side, mark it. I've now cut this piece to length. Now I'd hold this with 2 screws so I can mark that anywhere. Now bear in mind the screws that you use have to be long enough to go through this timber, but not so long they're going to go through the side of your bookcase. I'm going to be using one of these 10 gauge. Now what I'm going to do, I'm not going to glue this on, but what I'm going to do is drill 2 holes to take these screws, but I'm going to make sure that they're a bit looser than the screw. So in other words, the hole that I'm going to drill is bigger than the screw shank. The reason I drill these holes bigger, so this screw can just go straight through it like that, is if you're using timber, not MDF or chipboard like this is, but if you're using timber, it will expand and contract depending on what the weather is. For example, if you were to make this in winter or the wet season, it would have expanded. So then you glue this in place, you screw it down, it's held really, really tight, and then in summer and very hot weather, the moisture disappears, the timber wants to shrink, it can't shrink. So what it actually does, it finds the weakest part in the fibre and it splits. That's why a lot of times when you see furniture on the side casing, there's splits in it. I guarantee you have a look inside and they're going to have drawer runners or cleats, and they're either glued or tightly screwed. Whereas having that little bit of play for your screw to be in, that allows that screw to move in and out on the cleat. So these are cut to size. I've drawn a mark here where I'm going to have the shelf, and the shelf would sit in like that. But instead of having a dado, as we did in the project we're doing, what you can do is now get this cleat, and on the bottom of where that drawer is, we'll just line it up. And I wouldn't use any glue on this at all. We'll just whack a couple of screws. Put in 1 screw. Then if you'd like, get a square and just square it up to make sure it's nice and square. Put that second screw in. Make sure it's nice and square. There's the side and there's a cleat. I've got a couple of pre-drilled screw holes in the shelf. Just line that up. And there's another way of securing bookshelves. A cleat on the bottom and then a couple of screws to hold it in here. Whichever way's easiest. It's only to hold books after all. Alright, we're back with this bookcase now, but that's a nice way of doing the shelves if you haven't got all the tools required to do it, or perhaps you haven't got the confidence to do it the way that we've done it here. It's all a learning experience. Right, what we need is a bit of 2x1, at least the height of the bookcase. What I've done is got longer pieces. The reason being I'm just using ordinary utility pine. I'm not getting clear pine, and as you can tell, that's got a bit of a knot in it, and there's a knot down this end here. But in between the two, I get a nice clear piece of pine. And the same with this bit. It's got a bit of a horrible knot there. But hey, if you like the knots, leave them in. Just line that up. Grab a pencil and mark the bottom of the bookcase up against the bit that goes on the floor. And make sure it's nice and straight along the edge, and then mark at the top of the bookcase. So now we've got two marks, one here and one here. Do the same to the other piece. Okay, now just look at the timber. It's quite nice, I like that bit. That looks like that. Now we just nail them in place, but what I'm going to do is actually put a routed profile up the middle of this, so I don't want any nails near where my router cutter is going to go. So it's a question of, where's the glue? Where's the glue? Oh, it's the glue. Let's run a bead of glue down the outside. This one I do want flush with the edge. Remember with the back I said I didn't care. Get it, as I said, flush to the edges. Then I'll put one in here. Get the big hammer. One in the top. Now if it's got a bit of a bow in it that a lot of this pine does, if you put one in the centre and then you can gradually straighten the board out as you go. And the last one is actually kicking out towards me, so I'm just going to push it in a bit with my thumb, but that's okay. Whoop, that one bent. Remember, bend a nail, put a new one in. Oh, that one bent too. I'll tell you what. Try it, third time lucky. Nope. Sometimes you're the windscreen and sometimes you're the bug. I'll try a smaller hammer. There you go. Must have been too much breakfast. Now I'm just going to put one in each shelf, but on the inside, so when I put this routed bead up here, it won't touch the router. Won't use the big hammer this time, use the little one. And I'll go ahead and put the other side on, and next week what we'll do is start fitting some spreaders, start fitting some mouldings, start doing a little bit of router work on it, and you'll see the bookcase is really starting to come together. And you know what that means? It's time for me to say, this is Steve pulling the shed door down on yet another episode and reminding you to keep it sharp, but more importantly, keep it safe. And enjoy your woodwork. And like us on Facebook. And if you want to, join up the e-workshop at woodworkingmasterclass.com.au, and there'll be more videos posted there shortly, and I've got a couple of other things I've got up my sleeve. So look forward to seeing you in the shed for episode 5, and we'll start really putting the finishing touches onto this bookcase. Bye for now. G'day, Steve here, Woodworking Masterclass. You know, when I need hardware or any bits and pieces, this is where I come. Masters Parkinson, near Browns Plains in Queensland. But with almost 60 stores, nearly Australia wide, there's bound to be one near you. So why don't you do as I do, go to Masters for your hardware. And if you see me in the Parkinson store, say g'day.